Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Shiny Shiny Black YouTube channel. My name is Nate, and this is a Wednesday workshop. We are working on our live stream setup here, and thank you for joining us. If you saw last week, you'll know we're kind of making some adjustments on the fly here, and I'm real excited to be having my daughter Charlotte hanging out here today. She's going to be switching the cameras, and she's learning some stuff about video production and audio production and all the things. So welcome aboard, Charlotte. It's nice to have you here. She doesn't have a mic, so she's not allowed to talk, but okay, she can talk, but it will sound weird. Anyways, before we get going, I want to mention that we are a business. Shiny Shiny Black is a band, and we have music on all your favorite streaming platforms. And of course, we have our YouTube channel here. If you like the content that we're making, please be sure to like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get all the notifications every time we post a video, if that's something you want to do. It also always helps if you find something that we talked about interesting to go ahead and leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Or if you don't like what we're talking about and you want to let us know that too, that's perfectly fine. We'd love to know what you're thinking. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our Wednesday workshop today. So recently we've gone over a few of kind of the core components of what I do to make my guitar sound for Shiny Shiny Black. This is specifically for live, although I can't say we haven't used a lot of this same setup for studio recordings. But this is kind of the main setup that I use for live, and we can go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So this is my pedal board that I use for live, and if you remember, we talked about the guitar and then the amp, and then we talked about this. So the signal in the pedal board goes from my guitar into this pedal, into this pedal, into this pedal. It's a little confusing. And then back to this pedal. And then underneath, there's a splitter that splits the signal in two, and then it comes into this pedal, this pedal, this pedal, then this little blue guy right here, and then over to this. And we'll talk about that sometime in the future, but just so you have a general understanding of what's going on here. And we're not really going to talk about the rest of the pedals today because we're mostly just focused on this white pedal. And what is that? That is the JHS double barrel. And so let's talk about that for a second and kind of get into why. And I think it's a reasonable question to ask when I was talking the other week about my amazing rock and roll machines of my Fender Princetons, that if they sound so good, why do I need all these pedals, right? And I think that's a perfectly reasonable question. And there are some limitations. So one of the things that you run into if you're doing this is that if you get those great big rock and roll sort of snarly sounds out of the Princetons, then when you go to do a solo, let's say for instance, or do something that needs to be really significantly louder, when the Princetons are sounding like that and you try to go louder, it doesn't get louder. It just gets more distorty, and that's a problem. And so we need to deal with that, but I still want that rock and roll sound, right? So we're gonna look at this. This is how I get my rock and roll sound and still leave enough horsepower, if you will, left over in my amplifier to be able to get louder when I'm ready to do that. So this kind of gives me some of that turned up rock and roll tone that I'm looking for from my amps, but still gives me that extra juice to get louder. So we're going to go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to play the guitar without the pedal on here. So turn that up. So not a bad sound. Sounds pretty great. But there's a problem. It's really spiky. And if you notice, like, it's kind of disappearing a little bit unless I really dig in. And then all of a sudden it gets really snappy and loud like this. And then it kind of like gets thin. So now I'm going to turn this on. This JHS double barrel, and show you the difference, and then I'll kind of explain what the pedal is. So So if I do that snappy thing that I was doing before versus it just sounds a little more filled in and complete. And that's the goal. Right? To make it sound like it's already turned up, but without being quite as loud. So that's the purpose of the pedal. So let's talk about the pedal. This is actually two JHS pedals in one. The half on that you can see right now, that half is called a Morning Glory if it's bought as an individual pedal. And then this other half is called the JHS Moonshine, which and so both of these are like modified versions of other pedals. The Morning Glory, which is that part, is actually a modified Blues Breaker pedal that was made by Marshall amplifiers back in the 90s. And players like John Mayer have become really famous for using that pedal in recent years. And I think it sounds great. And that's kind of the main sound I use. It's pretty much never off. If you notice, it smooths out the sound a little bit. If I turn my guitar back on here. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. Compared to when it's off. Back on. So it just doesn't get quite as aggressive on those snaps, but then it's got a little bit more thicker, filled in kind of sound to it. So anyways, so that is the main version of it. And then on this controller here, I actually have a relay set up so I can flip this to this red channel and we can hear the difference here. Here's the normal. And then for me on songs like When You Get That Look, I switch to this. So that sounds really, really rowdy and aggressive, and gets me that. And then on a song like Stranger, I will turn this other pedal on, and that's gonna be So without it, a much kind of smaller sound. And then to complete the picture, then I turn on my tape delay pedal here. So you can hear how long that just rings out. So that's it. That's kind of my big tone secret. And we'll get into some of the rest of how those things work together. But since we've already talked about the fuzz, now we can turn the fuzz on and hear that into this. So there we go. All right. Well, that was a good time. I hope you've enjoyed our Wednesday workshop. Once again, I'm Nate, and this is Shiny Shiny Black. And so talking about basically the JHS Morning Glory, and when it's put in this double pedal, it's called the double barrel, which I think is just kind of funny. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. I hope it's helpful to somebody out there. If it is, be sure to leave a comment below and all that good stuff. And if you're interested in supporting Shiny Shiny Black beyond just this stuff, obviously subscribing to the channel helps, but also we have a website, shynyshinyblack.com, where we post all of our upcoming shows. We've got merch for sale, our email list, and last but not least, if you really want to contribute to us in an ongoing way, we have a Patreon, and we'd love to share, extra material, shows, demos, whatever kind of interesting stuff that we think you might find interesting. We post in there, and we like to hang out and talk with people. So be sure to sign up for that if you're interested in that as well. Until next time, though, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you real soon.